Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei teleported in Overlord and get Harem Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. David-sama, are you sure it's a good idea to let them leave ahead of us? Nabril, or Bella, asked as she wasn't sure that leaving the mission report to the Swords of Darkness was a good idea because of their incompetence and how they would steal her master's glory when David-sama did more of the work and fighting than the so-called adventurers. David patted her head, which made Bella blush at a touch of affection from her master before he replied to her question. It's fine, Bella, David said as he watched them leave the village. The visit to Karn village was a good beginning of the quest, since Nigeria could check on Henry, who David recalled were childhood friends, which also allowed David to see how the villagers were doing after the attack on their home. The villagers were beginning to practice archery, swordsmanship, and building defenses around their home, while working with goblins that Henry summoned from her horns that David left her as a gift before he left the village, back when the slain theocracy attacked Karn village. The Swords of Darkness could assist in protecting Nigeria as he gathered medicinal herbs and such while David was scouting the forest, looking for a particular location marked on the map created by Harem. Bella and Lupin assisted the villagers with manual labor and healing some of the sick and injured people who were still recovering from the attack on their village. Lupin didn't mind healing the disabled people but still enjoyed messing with the humans who gave her amusing reactions for the werewolf. At the same time, Bella was passive with the humans her master saved, since she learned that the humans saw Ddraig as their savior and guardian of the village, rather than the chief warrior and the other monsters in the forest. Luckily, the mission came to an end. Still, before the group headed out, David informed them that he wanted to check out the forest to scout out some monsters that he could fight with to gain more combat experience. Which the Swords of Darkness understood before they agreed to share the reward and do the report, which David accepted since the dragon knew that the leader and Ninja were the ones he trusted the most out of the group. This brings us to the trio entering the forest now, with Ddraig entering the forest while Lupis Regina and Nabril watch the back of their master. So where are we heading, Ddraig-sama? Is this because you were interested in something from Harem's report? Nabril asked as she was glad that the annoying bugs were away from her master, while Lupis Regina didn't seem to mind the walk through the forest as she looked around and scared some of the local wildlife. You're correct. Harem's report interested me since the creatures known as the Giant of the East, the Demon Snake of the West, and the Wise King of the North. I want to meet with them in hopes of peace negotiations for not just the protection of Karn village, but also to see if they would be willing to join Eden. If they did join us, that would open a world of possibilities for our army and the knowledge of the forest and people in the surrounding kingdoms. Nabril was in awe of this as she was amazed by her master's foresight before she looked down at her master's hand, clenching her right hand and slowly reached towards it until a noisy mutt came in and ruined her moment. Hey, master. Lupis Regina said as she took Draig's right hand and smiled toothily, not noticing the death glare that Nabril was sending her sister's way. How dare that mutt take away the hand that I wanted to hold. Nabril felt her mask almost come apart until a hand was extended towards Nabril, which left her shocked before she looked to see Dog's eyes before she heard his voice. You wanted my hand, did you not? I do not mind you holding my hand. Just ask next time before Lupis Regina takes it from you. Ddraig said with a light chuckle, which embarrassed Nabril until she nodded and took the hand offered to her. Thank you, Ddraig-sama, Nabril said as the duo continued to walk towards their destination, with Lupis Regina enjoying herself in the forest by chasing more wildlife and even toying with a few of the woodland creatures. Thank you, Scotty-sama. Nabril said in her mind as she thanked her teacher for the lessons to keep a relaxed face while enjoying the moment she shared with her master before they reached the end of the path. Nabril and Lupis Regina stared in awe at the massive lake so clear and pure that they couldn't see any contamination in the water. Lupis Regina cupped her hands and was about to reach the lake when a hand on her shoulder stopped her. No. Don't drink the water. It's poisonous. Ddraig said as Nabril and Lupis Regina were surprised by this before Ddraig picked a couple of leaves and threw them into the lake. They only floated on top of the water at first. Until they began to turn purple, which resulted in them being disintegrated into the water, which scared the two maids since Lupis Regina almost became one of the leaves as she couldn't believe that she almost succumbed and drank contaminated water. How did you know, Ddraig-sama? Lupis Regina asked as Ddraig turned back to her and explained. Because this is the home of the Demon Snake of the West. Allow me to show you. Ddraig said as he roared in the air while the roar caused the water to drive a few ripples on the lake surface. The maids were tense as they didn't feel anything for the first few minutes until the lake center began to bubble up as a figure of sorts started to make its way straight toward the trio. Still, as the bubbles got closer, a figure appeared on top of the surface. Who dares to disturb my peace? The voice bellowed as the figure stopped a few feet from the trio, revealing itself as a giant snake-like being. Its body was 50 feet long, while its skin was dark green with a lighter green underbelly. It also possessed rows of incredibly sharp poisonous fangs and large yellow eyes. From what Ddraig knew of the legends of the creature before them, he knew that their greatest strength was not their fangs, but their eyes, since they could instantly kill anyone who looked into them. Basilisk's skin was armored like a dragon's, which deflected spells cast upon it, a troublesome beast for those who chose to go for the class of being a mage. A basilisk. A type of snake which can be seen as a demon due to your eyes and poisonous fangs. My name is Ddraig Goch, and I wish to offer you a chance to join my home at the Garden of Eden. Ddraig said as the basilisk chuckled at the being before it until it began to look directly into his eyes. You expect me, the demon snake of the west, to become a servant of a lizardman? Don't make me laugh at such an audacious claim. Now die and become my meal. The basilisk shouted as she used its eyes on Ddraig, but to her surprise, the being before it merely lifted his left hand to reveal a ring on each of his fingers. I've faced basilisks before and sure they have petrification abilities, but there are two ways to avoid being hit by it. Don't look at its eyes or have some protection. Basilisks are snakes which are also a relative of dragons, so all I have to do is this. Issei said in his mind as the ring on his ring finger shined brightly as his body became shrouded in an aura of light. Ring of Purification. A special ring that prevents any curse, such as petrification. And not only that, but your gaze doesn't affect me for two reasons. The first is because of the ring. Ddraig said as he gestured for the two mates to stay back while he expanded his wings in full view, which shocked the basilisk until Ddraig flew into the sky a bit before letting out his aura. I am Ddraig Goch, the demonic dragon king who rules the Garden of Eden. I've seen curses like these before, and thanks to my Demon King title, I have immunity to curses such as yours. Ddraig said as the basilisk shook in fear and awe at the massive aura before Ddraig placed a hand on its head. I mean you no harm. May we please talk instead of fighting? I do not wish to take your life unless I must protect my people. Ddraig said as the basilisk nodded in submission while keeping its head down before Issei landed on the ground before the basilisk spoke to him. I apologize for my behavior, Ddraig-sama. I'm amazed to see a powerful being such as yourself, for it has been so long since I've seen anyone that powerful. The basilisk said Issei was interested in this information before pondering if others were like him in the game. Are you saying there were others that were like me? Players as you would call them? Ddraig asked as the basilisk nodded its head in reply. Correct. The ones who called themselves players were strange but powerful people who could perform many great things, but sadly, many of them have either died in battle or of old age. I was chased by a couple of players into the forest when I only wanted to interact with humans. Still, humans will only ever see us as monsters, either enslaved people or pets for players to tell their stories to spread their fame and gain more fortune from others. The basilisk explained how it came to be the demon snake of the west. The monster cared and was interested in humans, since it wanted to know about their culture and be able to interact with them. Unfortunately, she grew to despise humans after being mistreated and hunted for doing nothing wrong besides existing. Hence, the basilisk decided to become a monster that others feared when it entered the lake. The demon snake of the west established to anyone who entered its territory to take the basilisk's head that it wouldn't go down without a fight, and any poor soul who tried met a watery end. This information infuriated Issei as he knew how that felt since he was a rookie. Issei thought that during his time back in Yggdrasil would be able to fight as a dragon. Still, players who chose the human version would chase after him and try to kill him for money or for any items he was trying to obtain. That was until the heavenly dragon saved his life back in Yggdrasil. I do apologize for all that you've been through, but know that while I am a player, I am not like the others, for all is to protect the home and the people who live underneath my protection. I know what it's like to be discriminated against because you are not human. Ddraig said as the basilisk looked into his eyes, without triggering the effects of its eyes, and saw that he was telling the truth. Very well. In that case, I'd like to accept your offer to join your group. I hope you don't mind me asking if I can take the lake with me. I quite enjoy myself in this lake. The basilisk said as Ddraig smiled at the massive snake before stretching out a hand got the basilisk, which made the creature smile with a grin before it glowed brightly. Which temporarily blinded the trio until the light died down to reveal a lamia that had light blue hair that had forest green colors appearing at the tips of the woman's hair as her upper body was covered by scales and kept her bust surrounded by some of her scales as well. Her tail was very long and the scales were the same as the ones covering her upper body, but the top part of her tail was the same sky blue as her hair. Her hands were not human hands, but instead claws that were so sharp and deadly that she could tear into any intruder with her nails alone. Beautiful. Ddraig voiced as the lamia blushed from the compliment before she slithered over to Ddraig, wrapped her tail around his hand, and shook it. Thank you, but please don't look at my face. Lamia said as she fiddled with the mask covering her eyes alone, but the rest of her face was human if you didn't see the forked tongue and the fangs in her mouth. Ddraig smiled at the nervous girl and gently removed the mask with his left hand while his right hand cupped her right cheek. Medusa. That is what I shall call you. Ddraig said as the newly named basilisk blushed from the new name she had been given. At the same time, Lapis Regina liked what she saw, since the werewolf was looking forward to teasing the poor Lamia, while Narbril was pinching her left arm to ensure she didn't do anything that'll make the basilisk attack her, since her hands were radiating some of her lightning magic. Lapis Regina. Restrain yourself from harming and teasing her. Ddraig said as the maids froze in shock that their master could know what they were doing until he turned around and patted their heads. I understand your frustration and interest in our new comrade Lapis Regina, but that does not mean you mess with Medusa. She's trying to get used to this new life she's entered, so be nice. Medusa felt flattered by her new master's kindness and warmth, since she's never supposed that feeling from anyone, human or non-human, so she decided to thank Ddraig by standing close to him and grabbing the sleeve of his shirt. Ddraig could tell her intentions, so he didn't mind and rubbed her head, making Medusa sigh in relief as she enjoyed the head rubs from her new master. The maids felt like they were being forgotten until a hand began to rub their heads, since Issei knew from the game that Lapis Regina was a werewolf and liked being given head rubs like a dog. Narbril wanted to be closer to her master and feel his warmth. It's a good thing I recall the personalities given to them in the game. Lapis Regina may love to tease and mess with people due to her sadistic behavior from her race, but she also wants to feel kindness and love from her master. Plus, she's been like this since I healed her of her illness when we first met. Narbril, on the other hand, is a doppelganger, meaning that since she could transform into other individuals, she could also gain their powers. However, the maids still preferred her maid form to be closer to her master, giving her and her sisters a home and her mother figure, Scotty, who had taught her how to be a woman and hide her emotions from others. Issei pondered to himself while giving more love and attention to all three of them before stopping and returning to business. I've also heard of two other beings known as the Giant of the East and the Wise King of the North. Are there any others that I should know about? Ddraig asked as Medusa pondered any other beings that were as powerful as her before replying. There is a fourth individual, but it's a terrifying creature that resides in the northern part of the forest. She took the title away from the Wise King of the North after killing it because the former ruler was terribly ill, which caused the poor creature much pain and suffering. The being that took over the northern forest goes by the Walking Dead. No one has ever seen the face of the being before, but she has a cloak that covers her whole body and face, while her scythe reeks of blood and death. She's the reason why there are so few people and creatures who approach the area. Her aura itself shakes me to the core. Medusa said as she recalled feeling the aura of the Walking Death and felt as though she was staring death in the eyes, but felt relief when the atmosphere was gone from her territory. Ddraig pondered this as he tried to figure out what kind of creature this was to recruit them to join his home. A scythe is the signature weapon of a Dullahan since many use a scythe back in Yggdrasil. However, Yuri chose to go the brawler path instead, so perhaps Dullahans can choose what class they want to choose as their fighting style. I would like to speak to this person on a later date. I'm afraid we need to head to Irantil to report back with the Swords of Darkness. Ddraig said as the four of them left the forest, promising Medusa that they would come back to the lake after the mission, but they didn't notice a crow in a tree in the darkness staring at Draig's back. The figure looking at Ddraig through the crow gasped as they reached towards the player, but stopped as they pulled back their hand. The figure then hefted the massive scythe on its left shoulder and slinked back into the shadows. Is that you, Issei? The figure whispered to itself. The figure rubbed their eyes together and blushed at the sight she saw when Ddraig was facing the basilisk before it joined him. I hope you do come back, Issei. You'll be surprised to see that I'm here as well. Meanwhile, with the Swords of Darkness. Are you sure we should have tried to get them to come with us? Lucrid asked as Peter patted the back of the ranger. They said they wanted to check out the forest to gain some experience. I don't blame them since I'd do the same thing if I were a rookie. Even though they are copper plates and have some serious power, they need the skills to take on deadly threats in sticky situations, like when we were facing those goblins and trolls. Peter said as Lucrid sighed as well since he was hoping to see Bella and Lupin again before they made it to the shop where Nefarious worked with his grandmother. The herbalist was curious why it was so dark and quiet since he knew his grandmother had some lanterns that lit the inside of it when she was working late on a large order. Why is it so quiet? Nefarious asked himself before the door inside the room opened up to reveal Clementine herself as she was wearing her cloak, which made her seem more intimidating than before in the eyes of Nigeria. Why hello there, Nefarious. I'm glad you are finally back with the one I want. Clementine said as she smiled wickedly at the scared boy until the Swords of Darkness moved in to protect Nefarious from the woman, since they were well aware of who she was. Stay back, Nefarious. This woman is dangerous. Peter said as he readied his sword while Clementine giggled at the adventurers before laughing at them. Aw. So you've heard of me? That's going to make this more fun when I take your lives. Clementine said as she pulled out her stilettos. However, the one I'm after isn't the herbalist. It's actually that little boy, Ninja, who's my real target. His talent that allows him to use any kind of magic item without any issue is what I need for my plan to raise an undead army, so be a good boy and come with me, otherwise I'll have to kill your friends. I'm not sure what you mean by that since there's 4 of us and only 1 of you. Lucret said as Clementine stared at the 4 before smiling at them. I'm afraid you're wrong since I'm more skilled than the 4 of you combined, but since you aren't going to come with me willingly, I suppose I'll just have to kill you all and break the boy's legs, Clementine said as she charged at the group. Peter swung his sword but missed Clementine as she evaded the attack and stabbed her left stiletto in the outreached arm, which made Peter yell before the right stiletto stabbed his neck. Lucret tried to strike the assassin with his dagger, but Clementine saw this coming. Flow of wind. Clementine's body became lighter as she dodged the attack and could stick to the ceiling before she shot downwards towards the ranger and slit his throat with ease. Lucret's bloody body collapsed as Clementine licked the blood on her stiletto before asking the remaining few, only Nefarious and Ddraig, since he didn't notice the figure take Ninja into the night. Nefarious. Run and don't look back. Ddraig said as he yelled and charged at her, but the man was stabbed in the heart as Clementine appeared behind him and whispered. Lightning. Ddraig shouted as he felt the electricity burn inside his body before the spell, leaving Ddraig dead before the large druid collapsed on the wooden floor. Clementine didn't hesitate as she stabbed Nefarious in the heart, which made him gasp in pain before he was engulfed in the fire, thanks to Clementine's fireball spell. You have a good talent that allows you to learn magic faster than ordinary people, but sadly I don't need you. Clementine said as she watched Nigeria collapse on the ground before the assassin walked out to see Kajiat with Ninja knocked out and over his shoulder. We need to leave and get to the cemetery. The barrier will fall soon and we won't have enough time for the ritual. Kajiat said as Clementine nodded and took the boy to their base with Kajiat behind her as the barrier began to let down, while Ddraig and his party registered Medusa as part of the mission, but were surprised to hear that the Swords of Darkness and Nigeria has not returned. What do you mean they haven't returned? It shouldn't take that long to unpack the cart. Ddraig asked as the receptionist replied that she didn't know why, but still directed them to the shop. When they arrived, they were met with the bodies of 3 of the group's 4 members with Nefarious as well. Search for survivors. Ddraig instructed as Lupus Regina and Narbril headed into the shop with Medusa behind Ddraig before he began to inspect the bodies. They were killed a while ago. Probably while we were at the guild registering you as a member of our team. So it's my fault. Medusa said as she felt responsible for their deaths until Ddraig hugged her into his body and replied. No. Don't ever think that. We did not know this before returning, so it wouldn't have mattered. Plus, it's not like I'm crying for them. I barely knew them and granted. They seemed like a good group. I hardly feel anything for them. Probably because of my demon side, but also because of how I feel. I'm sad they died, but their deaths aren't affecting me so much. Issei said he had worked with others before but had not become their friend. His friends back home didn't play the game as much as he did, but there was a player that Issei had enjoyed playing with when they were available to meet for a dungeon raiding quest. I wonder if he's here in this world like me. Issei asked himself before Narbril and Lupus Regina came out with Nigeria's unconscious grandmother, but Lupus Regina could tell that a sleeping spell knocked her out. She's alive, but I fear she won't be able to handle her grandson being killed. Such a shame as well. Narbril said as Ddraig looked at the bodies and sighed. Even though they were our temporary comrades, they were good people, so it's only fair that they are given a proper burial. Ddraig said before he took off his left glove once more and lifted his pointer finger slightly as the effect started. The Ring of Time. It allows me to reverse time and a location to see what occurred in the past. It also can temporarily freeze time depending on the magic poured into it. Without magic, the effects last 48 hours, enough time to see what happened here. Issei said to himself as he recalled the 10 rings he obtained while grinding back in Yggdrasil. Each round had unique power and ability that Ddraig didn't have, so it benefited the player quite well when facing enemies and more powerful bosses. The 4 members looked around as the show began, with Issei seeing Clementine take out the 3 adventurers with Nefarious, but turned back time a bit more before the battle started. Once he found the right place, he stopped the rewind effect and began to listen to it. His talent allows him to use any magic item without any issue is what I need to raise an undead army, so be a good boy and come with me, otherwise, I'll have to kill your friends. Ddraig ended the show as he realized where the woman known as Clementine went with Ninja. I see. That's why she took Ninja. Her talent to use any magic item without fail, regardless of the restrictions and such. He then summoned his cloak and placed it over his shoulders. What are your orders, Ddraig-sama? Narbril asked as Lupus Regina and Medusa readied themselves for the battle until Ddraig turned around and spoke to them. Prepare for battle. It's the perfect night for a side quest. Ddraig said as he summoned his real sword, ready to take a couple of lives. The cemetery. The soldiers of Irantal were struggling as they were fighting off the undead trying to get into the kingdom, but even with the reserves, they were having trouble pushing them back. It's an entire army. I've never seen this many undead at once. There's got to be at least 1,000 of them. Notify the reserves quickly. The captain takes out his sword. We'll try to hold them off until backup arrives. He then charges at the undead and kills a few of them, which rallies the soldiers to fight. The soldiers gasped at the sight as undead began climbing on each other to reach the top. The soldiers try their best to keep the undead at bay, but the more they defeat, the more they take their place. "Get off me." A soldier cries as he pushes the skeleton away, only for another to climb and overwhelm him. A soldier's spear strikes that undead down, but another appears from the wall shortly. The soldiers bravely hold their ground, attacking any undead that can climb up. Damn. There's too many. The captain keeps cutting down the undead, but nothing seems to stop them until it becomes too much for him and the soldiers. Retreat. The soldiers run down the stairs, only to notice someone in front of the gate. "Hello there. Might we be of assistance?" Ddraig asked as the captain looked at the tag and saw that it was a copper plate. "This isn't the time to play the hero. You guys are copper plates. You wouldn't last 3 seconds inside that massive undead horde." The captain yelled as he pointed to the approaching army. Ddraig looked up and saw a couple of skeletons approaching the wall, before he summoned his bow and shot the arrows with deadly accuracy. Such power was behind the hands that it instantly blew their heads off. The captain and his soldiers were in awe of them before Ddraig reassured them. "My team and I are more than enough for this. Now open the gate," Ddraig said as the captain was albeit impressed but still tried to stop them. "Even though you're skilled, there's no way you're strong enough to deal with all of them. We need to wait for the higher class adventurers, and with them here we can," the captain said before Ddraig ignored the captain and began to walk up the stairs. The others followed him while the captain tried to reason with him, but his voice stopped when he saw the eyes of the dragon look at his own before speaking to the captain. "If you want to waste time running with your tail between your legs, that's fine. No one will blame you for running away, but if I can fight and save the lives of innocent people, then I will fight. Also, if you're intimidated by this pathetic excuse of an attack, you're not soldiers. Just a bunch of cowards," Ddraig said before he leaped over the wall while Lupus Regina, Narbril, and Medusa also went over the fence. Soldiers gasped as they could hear the loud sounds of metal clashing and grinding from the other side, before hissing and roars began to bellow out, followed by a large blast of fire. The area was silent for a few minutes before the captain couldn't hear a single sound from the other side of the gate. "Wait. It can't be," the captain uttered in disbelief before one of the soldiers spoke to him. "What is it? Can't you hear it?" The voices of the undead just stopped. The captain replied in awe until he headed back up the gate and looked at the other side of the wall, where the remains of the undead could be seen scattered around. "There's no way they defeated that many undead alone," a soldier said in awe at the sight until the captain looked at one of his men and asked. "That Demihuman. What was his name again?" The soldier stepped forward and replied to his captain. "They are new adventurers who are led by David. He's a Demihuman that's skilled in swordsmanship." "David? I think. I've never heard of him before," the captain replied as the soldiers talked amongst themselves. "Are you sure he was only a copper plate? It seems wrong since he's far too powerful and experienced to be a rookie," a soldier said in disbelief while the soldier who mentioned his name replied. "One of my old buddies from the guild told me of a woman named Lupin, who's the redeed of the group, that she was with the strongest man in the world. If that guy is really the same person she spoke about, then he's definitely worthy of the adamantine plate. Whatever he is, we just witnessed a myth in the making," the captain stated as he recalled the words of the Demihuman before continuing his sentence. "The legend of a dragon warrior who becomes a hero. Was it vital to insult them, David Sama?" Medusa asked, unsure if she should voice her opinion until he saw David stop in his tracks before he sighed in reply. "Look, I get that they are afraid of the undead, but trust me when I say this. I've seen people fall victim to their fear and hope that reinforcements come, but if they are so scared they can't hold out much to defend the city the soldiers swore to protect and the people, then they don't deserve to be heroes. I've seen people who act like heroes, and guess what? They were fakes. Heroes who pretended to be good acted nice until they got what they wanted and stabbed you. I've seen it many times, and it sickens me to the core of my heart," David said as Medusa was shocked by this before her master continued forward while using his sword to crush multiple undead easily and Lupin and Bella with their weapons. "TCH. This'll take too long. Time to call in some reinforcements," David said as he held out his sword and summoned a few demons. Summon Hellhound Army, David said as multiple Hellhounds emerged from a portal. However, one much larger than the other Hellhounds had 3 heads instead of 1. The massive one was Cerberus. A powerful summon that worked with Luna in her area and was extremely loyal to its master, who is now the adventurer David. Cerberus. Clear a path and have your army destroy the undead without hesitation. David said as Cerberus howled in acknowledgement before the Hellhounds howled as well with their leader, before they all charged at the army and destroyed the military with either their claws or hellfire breath, which burned the skeletons to ashes and a couple of zombies. Which made David smile as the rest of his party continued forward, except for Medusa, who was in awe of the massive destruction that the Hellhounds caused before following her master. Incredible. I knew Ddraig Sama was powerful, but this is a whole other level. Medusa said to herself while following them toward the enemy. As they continued forward, they eventually stopped at the old temple where Kajiat and his followers were chanting some words for some ritual. Mueoko Yukdoka Mueoko Yukdoka Mueoko Yukdoka, they continued chanting while not noticing the Demihuman closing in on them. Why, hello there. A wonderful night to invade a city, is it not? David said as Kajiat was shocked by the 4-person group that could make their way towards them easily, before David used his hearing to listen to the cultists surrounding the necromancer. So Kajiat is your name, correct? A pleasure to make your acquaintance. David said as he then looked at them, stopping their ritual. How nice of you to end your dull ritual just for me, David said as Kajiat felt insulted by the comment before his followers stood aside to let the necromancer step forward. HMPH. There's nothing dull about this ritual. As you'll soon witness, and since you know my name, why don't you share yours? Kajiat asked as David smiled and replied. David. These are my partners Lupin, Bella, and Medusa. We're just adventurers who are out here doing a job. I'm sure you've seen the ninja since I'm aware your friend was the one who killed his comrades. Make this easy on yourself and show us where he's hidden. David demanded as the followers gasped at the Demihuman's boldness until David continued. And while you're at it, point me in the direction of your friend. David raised his sword at Kajiat while glaring into the necromancer's skull. The one that's carrying the piercing weapon. Surely they're not too scared to face me. Or maybe they are only brave enough to fight the weak. You took the time to examine the corpses. Smart guy. A voice called out from within the temple, making Kajiat turn to the temple gate to try to stop them. Go back in. The voice began to become more evident as Clementine was now leaning by the gate. Kaji, this fellow has figured us out. There's no point in hiding anymore. Don't you want to tell sweet little Amy your name? Huh. My name's Clementine. The pleasure's mine. I'm your executioner. Call me David. David said as he lowered his sword, knowing that the assassin's stilettos would do no damage to him thanks to his scales. Oh. You're confident. Tell me, how did you figure out that we came to the cemetery? Clementine asked before David pointed to her being. It was you who led us here. Clementine blinked in confusion before hearing David speaking again. Open up your cloak and show me your trophies. Whoa, hey. Now you're making me blush. Clementine fidgeted around before smiling at him. And I like it. Looking for these. She pulls back her cloak, revealing the many adventurer plates that make up her bikini armor. That was one of the 3 reasons we were able to find you. The other 2 were obvious. Your scent was able to give you away, and when you said you would summon an army of the undead, it's easy to figure out the perfect place to perform such a ritual. David said as Clementine didn't seem to mind before the assassin walked towards David and asked. So? What do you plan to do? Avenge your comrade's death by killing me? Clementine asked as David rolled his eyes before turning to the trio. No one else is around, so you can go out and show these idiots the true power of Eden. However, make sure you aren't okay with your food for too long. David said before looking up at the sky and speaking to them again. Also, keep an eye on the sky. I'll be dealing with her. Understood David Sama. You got it. This is going to be fun. You understood David Sama. Bella, Lupin, and Medusa replied before watching their master leaves towards the fog. Clementine. Let's fight away from the others. It'll be more fun killing you when there are no others around. David said as Clementine began to follow him while smiling at the idea of killing the Demihuman. These girls are harmless. Kajiat scoffs as he expects the females to be easy kills, but this offends Bella and Lupin before they fight and kill the older adult. We are anything but harmless. Allow us to demonstrate. Bella said as she began to smile while Lupin readied herself by transforming into her lycanthrope form, which terrified some of the cultists as some of them began to run until Lupin's claws killed them as she stabbed them and began to bite their heads off, making Lupin howl in delight while Bella started her battle with the cultists. Twin maximize magic. Bella extended her arms as 2 balls of lighting enveloped her hands. What? Kajiat exclaims as his remaining followers gasp at the sight until Bella begins her attack. Electrosphere. Bella shouted as she threw the two spheres at the cultists, causing a large explosion that encompassed everything around it until the light died down, to only show the cultists dead on the ground, except for Khajiit himself. The necromancer cackled as he was surprised that the girl could use high-level magic. Impressive magic. I wouldn't mind extending an invitation to join me. Bella narrowed her eyes at immense sight and disappointment. How annoying. Why don't you just roll over and die like a good little rodent? Khajiit was about to make a reply until he was slammed into the ground by Medusa, who moved quickly to remove the crystal from Khajiit's hand before she revealed her poisonous fangs and bit into the leader's neck, which made him scream in pain as he felt the poison enter his body. He looked at his left arm and saw the poison spread throughout his body until it went deeper into his heart, making him struggle to stand up to face Medusa before his eyes went to the back of his head. I hate sinking my fangs into the ones who smell like death. Leaves a bad taste on my tongue. Medusa said as she looked at the deceased necromancer before picking up the orb and handing it to Bella. She was curious about the sphere until she could sense a large amount of negative energy within it. Perhaps Lady Shy would like this as a gift, Bella said as Lupin returned, munching on a cultist's head before throwing it away. So what now? Save the kid? Lupin asked as she gestured to the temple entrance before Bella nodded. David Sama made sure to give me a small item that should be able to help us with whatever raised this army of the undead, Bella said as she reached into her cloak and pulled out an enchanted dagger that radiated power. Still, Medusa could tell it wasn't meant to harm people. Bella saw the fear and explained the dagger. It's a dagger that was especially made for magical items. If the wearer cannot remove the item due to a curse or any kind of problem, then this dagger takes care of it by severing the contract that the user has with the item. It was originally named Rule Breaker after a witch who made this dagger to sever magical contracts or anything that is magic. Medusa was in awe of the dagger's abilities until Bella began to walk toward the entrance. I'll deal with the girl. You loot anything the worm has on him, including the cultists, so that we can provide our master with anything useful. Bella said as Lupin got to work and began to loot them, while Medusa did as she was ordered but couldn't help but worry about the fate of the assassin her master was facing off against right now. May the gods protect you, Ddraig Sama. The scene changes to show David and Clementine continuing their walk with her humming the whole way. I guess those men I killed in town were friends of yours, is that right? Did you come here to avenge them or something stupid like that? Clementine giggles. Did you notice the magic caster was really a girl? She kept insisting that someone would come to rescue them. But I got bored of waiting around. I barely knew those adventurers, David told her, which made Clementine stop laughing as she looked surprised by the quick reply before speaking again. Really? That's disappointing. Her face quickly swifts to a more annoyed expression. I was so looking forward to all the whining about how they meant so much to you, and I had no right to kill them. Please say you're not going to have one of those boring deaths. I can't get hard if you're not angry. David stopped walking as he turned around and faced Clementine. This isn't vengeance. They were in your way and needed to be dealt with. I would have done the same thing in your shoes had they gotten in my way. However, I can't say I'm quite comfortable with what you did to Ninya, since you kidnapped her, killed her friends, and even forced her to raise an army of undead. This is my sense of justice, and it can sometimes be quite cruel. Clementine smiled as she readied herself. Fabulous. I promise there's no way you can defeat me. It's a shame you left your comrades with Khajiit. He gets to kill them, which means no fun for me. Oh? Do you think that they can't take care of themselves? Then you are arrogant because you think you scare me in the slightest. David said, which irked the assassin a bit until Clementine replied. You're hilarious. All it takes is a slice and a quick stab. Clementine mimes a stab. I've killed plenty of magic users that way. Oh? That's not very impressive in my eyes. Are you saying there are others stronger than you out there? David asked as Clementine decided to indulge him and nodded in reply. Of course. I'm even afraid of a select few people. I know all the people strong enough to fight me in this country. There's a person from Blue Rose and one from Drop of Red. Then probably Gaz of Stronov. And maybe Brain on Gloss. Thanks for the information. It sounds like you need to be given a handicap. Consider it a sympathetic parting gift from me to you. David said, which made Clementine growl at the insult. You must not have a brain underneath that scaly head of yours if you think you can talk to me like that and get away with it. She reaches for the stilettos on her back. The inhuman Lady Clementine doesn't lose brawls to nobodies like you. You're about to learn why people fear me. I see nothing to be scared of, David said, as he didn't see her as a threat. You are a joke, so shut up and fight. Clementine drew her stilettos, charged at David, and clashed with his claws, which made sparks when disagreeing with the steel, before David used his tail to slap her stomach, which made the assassin cough, as she could feel the force behind it while skidding back from her opponent. Damn. That's some serious strength you have there. How is someone like you a copper-ranked adventurer? Clementine asked as David gave her no reply, which infuriated her even more as she crouched down on all fours and whispered. Low acceleration, ability boost, and greater ability boost. Clementine whispered to herself as she felt her power increase until she charged at David, who didn't even move from his position. What is this guy thinking? Does he think he can take me on? Clementine said in her mind as she struck her opponents, which activated the lightning spell in the stiletto, until she took the other one and stabbed the other one, which caused a massive explosion. Still, Clementine leaped away from the smoke as she couldn't help but wonder what kind of facial expression David would make, but to her surprise, he was standing there unharmed. Is that it? I was expecting more from a dog who barked so much. David said as he cracked his neck, which made Clementine even more afraid until she felt something wrap around her stomach before she was forcibly pulled forward to David's boots. Clementine looked up as she was scared of the eyes looking at her own before David revealed his demon form, which sent shivers down her spine as she felt fear enter her heart. Tell me, Clementine. How did you feel about facing a demonic dragon? Who even gave you a handicap by fighting as a dragon demihuman? Ddraig said as Clementine felt a hand cup her left cheek, making her even more afraid of him until Ddraig got down to her level and began wiping the tears from her eyes. SHH. SHH. It's okay. I promise it'll be quick and painless. Ddraig said as he hugged the girl close to her, making her cry tears of sadness before she felt something sink into her back. I can see your heart and soul as it cries out in pain, but you didn't choose this life, did you, Clementine? Ddraig asked as Clementine continued to cry until she shook her head lightly. I wanted to feel accepted. Loved. But your parents provided none of that, correct? Playing favorites? Ddraig asked as Clementine continued to cry as she felt her life slipping away before Ddraig picked her up bridal style and brushed some of the dirt off her face before ing her forehead. Clementine. I wish to offer you a second chance. A chance to be reborn anew. Accept and you'll become someone even greater while also gaining the love you desire so dearly. Ddraig said as Clementine looked at his eyes and saw nothing but warmth and kindness directed towards her as she replied. But why? Ddraig only responded by simply replying to her. Because you may have done many things that are cruel and unjustified, but I don't see a killer in your eyes. I see a scared and lonely girl who wants to feel the love her parents never gave her. So why don't I help you by giving you the love you desire? Ddraig said as Clementine was shocked by the words he spoke before grabbing his cloak and nodding. I accept. Wonderful. Ddraig smiled before tapping her forehead and putting her to sleep. Rest now, Clementine. You shall be reborn soon. Ddraig approached the temple with Clementine in his arms while Bella stood next to Ninya's body while Lupin was healing her eyes. David-sama. I wish to give you my report. Bella said as Ddraig nodded in reply before Bella switched to Narbril as she began to give the report. I managed to use the enchanted dagger to remove the magic item on the girl's head, which allowed the necromancer to summon multiple undead. After dealing with the necromancer, I ordered Lupus Regina and Medusa to loot the bodies of anything useful. They found some useful information, extra money, and the orb the necromancer held. Narbril said as she gave the orb to Ddraig, who gave the body of Clementine to Medusa before inspecting the sphere. Interesting. The Orb of Death. An interesting name for this item. Ddraig said before hearing a voice speak from within it. I am glad you approve of me, my master. I never would have thought that there was someone who worships the concept of death more than that necromancer. What an incredible turn of events. I swear my loyalty to you, my master. The orb cheered from within, which surprised Ddraig before asking the sphere. A sentient being. How amusing. Do you wish to swear loyalty to me? I know someone who might require your talents far more than me. Think of this as your first assignment as a new member of Eden. Ddraig said as he felt that Shai would enjoy this opportunity to have a new friend to chat with and enjoy the concept of death. There's one more thing, master. Narbril said as she held up the magic item Ninya had on her head. Apparently this was known as the Crown of Wisdom. I believe it will benefit us in the future. Ddraig looked at the crown and smiled at this before patting Narbril's head, which made her smile a bit. Excellent work, Narbril. Leave the cultists and Khajiit's bodies here so they can be blamed for this mess. Take Ninya and Clementine back to the Garden of Eden. Del Venue prepares the healing pool for Ninya, while Luna takes Clementine to be reborn as a new member of the Garden of Eden. After sending the message to Albedo, the maids nodded as they transported the people and orders to Eden. Medusa was still amazed at the trio she was now a part of before the sun began to rise as a new day approached, which was the beginning of the legendary warrior and his party. I thought they would have prompted us to Orichalcum, but I suppose this will do, David said as he looked at his new mithril plate. Lupin didn't seem to mind, but Bella couldn't help but feel insulted. Their audacity knows no bounds. We do all of the heavy lifting, and yet the others are given more praise than they deserve. How is that fair? Bella hissed out as she felt like the guild was insulting their master by not giving him the highest rank that he had rightly deserved after not saving the worms of the city from an undead army, but also stopping the cultists and Clementine. It's fine, Bella. As we speak, the surviving soldiers are spreading the tale of my strength and valor to everyone in Erantal. The boost that will give to my status makes getting a mithril rank a moot point. David said as Bella huffed a little while, still thinking her master had been cheated out of the highest rank, until Medusa looked at her master and asked, "What should we do about the boy and his grandmother?" Medusa asked as she recalled how saddened the woman was after learning that she had lost her grandson to the cultists, until David patted her head and replied, "After I spoke to Lizzie about Karn Village and how Ninya was a survivor, she decided to move to Karn Village, and when Ninya recovers, have her become Lizzie's apprentice. Her skill at making potions will serve me, or rather all of Eden, quite well. But before we get to the aftermath, I should contact Albedo to see what is happening at Eden." David said as he picked up a scroll and tossed it in the air. Message. The message spell activated as Albedo spoke to him. "Lord Ddraig. I must report that Luna Blood Moon and Shalti or Bloodfallen have betrayed Eden." All was quiet until Issei took over for a moment. "What?" Azrael was eating her meal with Nigan sitting across from her, which worried the man before Azrael chuckled at the man's reaction. "Enjoy yourself, Nigan. After all, a noble like myself should always care for the servants who serve under them," Azrael said as she watched Nigan thank her before enjoying the meal, which made the others inside of the inn look at Azrael in shock and a few others in respect since, in the Riesti's kingdom, it's not common for nobles to mistreat their servants. Hence, it's rare for a noble such as Azrael to show respect and reward her servants for their services. Nigan was glad he could serve his new mistress after Lord Ddraig and Lady Azrael gave him a chance at mercy. That is why he has been working with Solution to locate any martial artists and influential magic users that'll serve his masters. Still, the problem is that compared to the gods living in the Garden of Eden, there are hardly any others who don't come close to the power that Guardians or Ddraig hold. However, he was surprised to hear about the adventurer David and his team being able to tame a legendary beast from the forest near Karn Village and take down an army of undead, the rogue necromancer Kadjit and his cult. Nigan was aware that Lord Ddraig had taken up the disguise of being an adventurer, which amazed a former member of the slain theocracy. Unfortunately, his thought process was interrupted by Azrael, who finished her meal and stood up before looking at Nigan. "Enough, Nigan. I do not wish to stay here a moment longer since I have other appointments scheduled for tomorrow, so I would like to get some sleep before the sun comes up again," Azrael said as Nigan nodded as he stood up from the table before the Archangel walked towards a table in the corner with a man eating and drinking wine. "Zach." The man jumps and turns around. He is a man in his mid-30s with an unshaved mustache, brown hair, and a large nose blooming at the tip. He is wearing a red jacket with orange highlights, a white frilled shirt underneath, black pants, and black shoes. "Yes, miss?" Zach asked. "Stop stuffing your face and get the carriage. I won't be back at my home within the hour," Azrael demanded and walked upstairs to her room as Nigan turned to the rest of the patrons and bowed his head to them. "Please, return to your meals, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my lady's actions, she is not a morning person." He followed Azrael and walked upstairs before knocking on his lady's door. "Lady Azrael. May I come in?" "You may enter, Nigan," Azrael said behind the door as Nigan entered the room to see Azrael in her noblewoman attire, before she ruffled Nun's head and apologized. "I believe I took the outburst a bit too far, and I hope I didn't harm you," Azrael asked, which made Nigan's heart flutter as he was glad to have such a caring master, but knew he wouldn't dare defile the woman's body in any way, shape, or form. He then bowed to her before replying to her. "Oh no. There's no need for that, Lady Azrael. Your performance was amazing as you are, however, I am a bit disappointed in how slow it's been to try and find any worthy members to join Eden. I apologize for not being able to find anyone who is even worthy of gracing Eden, Lady Azrael," Nigan said as Azrael shook her head in reply as spoke to him. "I honestly didn't expect much from the people of this kingdom since, according to the information we have from Lord Draig's new servant Clementine, we were able to locate someone who may be a good addition to our forces," Azrael said, as Nigan was grateful that they were at the very least able to get something out of their act. Suddenly, a knock on their door alerts Nigan until he hears a giggle from a maid he's been working with. "Lady Solution. I'm surprised to see you come here and grace Lady Azrael with your filthy body," Nigan said as Solution came into the room and glared at Nigan before replying. "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought a dog had spoken to me without their master's permission," Solution said in annoyance as she was disgusted by the idea of working with a human, even if he was under Lady Azrael's protection, that was only shown mercy because of the information he possessed. "And I'll have you know that as a slime, my body cleans itself." "Are you sure? Because you still smell like a dead man that you just ate." Negan said as he was annoyed by the slime's personality and actions that would put the plan at risk since he had heard a report of homeless and low-class civilians disappearing in the night without evidence to back them up. Negan was aware that the slime enjoyed hearing the screams of her victims before consuming them. I still don't understand why a slime like you is here, and I'm more than capable of protecting Lady Azrael. And I'm also capable of protecting her. Far better than a monkey like you. Rather be a monkey than a sadistic slime who's not even a real lady. The two continued to glare at each other angrily until Azrael stepped in. Now, it's time to put this to rest. Shaltier has certainly grown anxious to play her part in all of this. Please let her know the time has finally come. Azrael said as Negan growled at Solution once more before turning to his right, grabbing a briefcase and sling onto his back. Understood, Lady Azrael. Negan left the two women alone as Solution glared at the door where the man was before speaking to Azrael. You truly live up to your name, Lady Azrael, but is it worth keeping that human around? Let it go, Solution. Negan is a loyal servant and member of Eden under my protection, so know that I won't allow you to harm him. Azrael said in a severe tone that made Solution shove her distaste down her throat, knowing that she shouldn't dare to impose or insult the thinking of their master and the only guardian to come close to defeating Shaltier. Who is tied with the Archangel as the most vital guardian of Eden. Of course. Forgive me, Lady Azrael. Good. By the way, is Zach performing as we expected? Azrael asked as she sat on her bed with a bored expression about the man she hoped to be done with. The pig looked at her with disgusting eyes that made her want to purify the pig and break his mind, but she was glad Negan interfered with Zach before Solution nodded in reply. Yes, my lady. The Solution puts her hand on her closed eye and smiles. As we speak, he is meeting that filthy man in the back alley. Her vision changes to show Zach talking to someone. They are planning to attack us somewhere outside the city. And use you for all manner of unspeakable things. She said, but inwardly she was glad to finally be rid of that disgusting human who dared to try and touch Lady Azrael. That bastard. I won't let them touch Lady Azrael. Solution yells in her mind. There is no emotion behind Azrael's eyes as she smiles like a particular demon she served before speaking to Solution. I am happy to hear it. Everything is unfolding as Lord Ddraig predicted. Solution takes her hand off her eye and asks the Guardian. One more thing, Lady Azrael. I'd like to have that man once he's no longer useful. Azrael stopped at the door before smiling as she could tell what the predator slime was thinking before turning back and nodding. I'll speak with Shaltier about this, but I believe she won't mind. Why do you ask Solution? Solution had a large grin on her face as she bowed to Azrael. Thank you very much. And why are you so interested in him, if you don't mind me asking? Simply curiosity and nothing more. Azrael said as Solution giggled as if she was a child before speaking to her superior. He thinks he will get to enjoy a piece of me. So, I thought I'd let him have a taste. A little slice of heaven before he sees hell. Solution's face then morphs into a grotesque smile far too wide for a human to make. Azrael smiled in interest as she nodded. Very well then. Take upon my form and you'll be able to enjoy yourself with that man. I'll return to the Garden of Eden to inform Lord Ddraig of our progress. Happy hunting, Solution. Azrael said as she vanished before Solution smiled as she changed her body to appear as Azrael was an honor for her to take upon the appearance of a guardian. Usually, she wouldn't be able to do this. Still, her master, Ddraig, had told her that if Azrael permitted her, she could use her ability to turn into others. Still, it's different from that of a doppelganger, since Solution can only imitate others physically and cannot use their abilities. However, that didn't stop Solution from using it on the street rats she had consumed during her time in Riestais. To become Lady Azrael is such an honor. Perhaps Negan was in an accident and touched Lady Azrael's body. Solution pondered as she wanted to get rid of the human, but then thought of Azrael and Ddraig being furious at her, which made Solution destroy that idea before hearing Negan return to retrieve Azrael. Are you ready, Lady Azrael? Negan asked as he narrowed his eyes at the woman before scoffing at Solution. Hope your acting skills are as good as your abilities. Solution was sad that Negan saw through her, though it makes sense since he has followed her since they came to the kingdom under their mission. Of course, Negan. Let's go home. Let me guess, Negan. Shaltier began as she spoke to Azrael and Negan about the plan. Our unfortunate prey finally took a bite of the bait. Shaltier asked as she filed her nails. Yes. Wonderful if I say so myself. Negan replied as Shaltier smiled in reply. It's about time. We will find a magic or martial arts user to suit Lord Ddraig and return to him soon. Shaltier said as she pondered her master's intentions with martial art used back in Eden before he headed out to become an adventurer. Why does Lord Ddraig want a martial arts user? Shaltier asks Luna and Bellona before Amazon replies to Shaltier. Curiosity. According to Lord Ddraig, martial arts skills didn't exist in our old world and it's an ability exclusive to this world. When Lord Ddraig saw Gazif Strunov use martial arts, he wanted to learn more about them and the possibility of finding new magic never seen in our world. He also said that if he can learn martial arts, my Amazons can also learn them. He wishes to strengthen Eden to keep our home safe and defeat any enemies that may intrude on our home. Bellona explained as Shaltir was in awe of her master's words that the Amazon had shared with them. He's amazing to think so far ahead for Eden's future. He says he's not all-knowing, but I believe he can always think 10 steps ahead of everyone else. There's no one more worthy of leading us than Lord Ddraig Goch himself. Shaltir screamed in joy as she was glad to be able to serve her master, whom she loved with all her heart. Unfortunately, her flashback was interrupted by the horse whinnies as the carriage suddenly stopped, surprising the group a little, followed by someone knocking on the door. "Knock knock, girlie. Why don't you come outside? We want to play with you." The scene shifts to the outside, where the carriage is surrounded by mercenaries, with some climbing on the carriage itself, all giggling excitedly at their soon-to-be prize. Zack leans closer to the leader. "You let me have a go afterward, right? I mean, I am the one who brought them here." The carriage doors open and someone comes out, but Zack gaps as it isn't Azrael who came out. It was Shaltir who gave the band of thieves a beautiful smile. The mercenaries whistle and howl with delight at the sight of the beautiful vampire girl. "This ain't your lucky night, sweetheart. Just go along with it and we won't take your life, okay?" One of the mercenaries told her as he put his hand out and walked towards Shaltir, specifically her. "You got one hell of a rack for a little girl." As the mercenary's hand reaches Shaltir's breast, the hand stops and falls to the ground. "As if I would let you defile me with your dirty hands," Shaltir arrogantly states. The mercenary blinks and looks at his hand, realizing it has been completely severed. "Oh god, what the hell happened to my hand?" The mercenary screams in pain as blood flows out of the stump like a geyser. "Humans make far too much racket," Shaltir dismissively states. She moves her arm and, like a sword, easily cuts off the mercenary's head. The head falls to the ground as Shaltir elegantly jumps off the carriage. The light in the background makes Shaltir's eyes seemingly glow as the body behind her falls, with the blood flying everywhere. Bandits gasp and whimper before they all look up. The dead mercenary's blood flies upwards, forming an orb of blood above Shaltir's head. A magic caster. Some of the mercenaries run away while others raise. Shaltir shrugs. "This is already boring. Do me a favor and clean up the rest of them." As she said this, her 2 vampire brides phase into existence and get to work. Zack can only watch in horror as these monsters make quick work of the mercenaries, who are powerless to scratch their skin. But how? Who the hell are these people? Zack asks out loud as he steps back. Azrael suddenly appears from the shadows. "Mr. Zack. This way." Zack gasps as he turns to see his lady, the lady he was planning to have his way with, standing behind him with a smile. Azrael giggled as she took the top portion of her dress, showing off her ample breasts. Zack looks at her breasts and slowly smiles. He reaches out, but as soon as he touches them, his hands sink into the fake Azrael's body. "Stop it. Stop it. Oh god." Zack screams out, and he can feel his hands melting as he is pulled closer. "Oh god. Someone save me. Please, have mercy." Solution laughs sadistically at Zack's plea before his body is wholly swallowed. "It looks like we've managed to do nothing but waste our precious time." Shaltir huffs. Her attention then shifts to one of her vampire brides dragging something with her. "Lady Shaltir. We just received word from Lady Luna Blood Moon and she has located the nest of these humans. One of the humans is a man that goes by the name Brain Ungloss. He's adept at martial arts skills. According to Lord Draig's list, Brain Ungloss fought on equal terms with Gazif Strunov, the royal head warriors of this kingdom. I know that name very well. I believe he's considered the strongest fighter in Riestais. Skilled in swordsmanship and may become a valuable ally to Eden. Unfortunately, after Gazif defeated him, he became a swordsman for hire and has been trying to get stronger to defeat Gazif next time when they battle." Nigan added as Shaltir smiled at this information and nodded. "This Brain Unglaw sounds like the perfect candidate," Shaltir remarked as Nigan agreed. "Indeed, he does. However, Solution and I must part ways with you here, as we have a mission to collect information in the capital for Lord Ddraig." Nigan bowed, and the 2 servants rode their carriage back into the kingdom. "May we meet again in the Great Garden of Eden," Shaltir said before heading out to her target. Bandit hideout. Within a lit underground hideout, a man was cleaning their katana. The man was Brain Ungloss. He had brown eyes, blue hair, and the appearance of a wild beast. He was equipped with chainmail, wore a necklace, and was reused with protection magic. His whole body was lean, and his muscles were tough as steel and tempered through years of experience. After hearing the commotion, he smirked as he stood up from his cleaning. "Sounds like a party." He walked down the lit path until someone ran up to him. Brain. Thank the gods. We're being attacked. The mercenary exclaimed as Brain asked about the situation. Yeah, that much is obvious. How many are there? That's the thing. There are only 2 of them. Both women, but these women are monsters. Brain scoffed at the alert before replying. Women? Are you pulling my leg? He steps aside and continues walking down the path. But I'll handle this one. Head back and fortify our inner defenses. Brain smirked as he continued walking down the path. Now back at the cave, the mercenaries were running away as they were mercilessly cut down, and their blood splattered everywhere. Shaltier's shadow is seen, followed by the tapping of her heels with her vampire bride next to her. As she continues walking forward, the blood pool drains the corpses of their blood, leaving them as nothing but skin and bone. Shaltier, however, is bored out of her mind. No one here has even presented the slightest bit of challenge. She wants to complete her task and go home. I honestly am bored out of my mind just trying to find a potential member of Eden, but these humans are too weak even to scratch me. I can see why Luna decided to stay out of this, since she didn't want to put up with these humans who are pathetic in many ways. Shaltier then looked at the darkness around her as she pondered back to when she first met the master that had saved her and given her a place where Shaltier enjoyed every day with the man she fell in love with and would serve until the day she died. This reminds me of the day I met you, Lord Ddraig. Shaltier said as she recalled her past master. Flashback. Shaltier was strung up in a dark room as she was being punished for disobeying her master and trying to escape the castle due to her wanting to be free of the Lord who only saw her as a woman who could give him a strong child. Still, Shaltier refused and attacked him, resulting in the vampire lord punishing her by putting her in the torture room. Shaltier didn't have the strength, as she could tell the shackles were of holy magic that burned her arms and skin. Her hair was loose and flowed freely while her clothes were gone, making her feel even sadder about her punishment, hoping it would end her pain and suffering. However, as she waited for her future executioner, Shaltier heard a lot of shaking happening upstairs and saw that there were many screams and roars from the throne room until Shaltier closed her eyes and connected with one of her virgin maids to see that her master was being killed by a massive dark figure who was standing above the vampire lord before he picked up the vampire and killed him. Absorbing his power and soul, which made Shaltier's eyes widen in awe of the power that radiated off of the person before her until the figure turned around to reveal Diablo himself. Diablo looked at the lone virgin vampire maid and walked towards her before looking at the eyes. Who are you? Shaltier smiled through her marked maid before speaking to him. Shaltier Bloodfallen. I apologize for not meeting you, but I'm a bit tied up. Would you please help me? Shaltier asked as she was saved by Diablo, a demon who was different from the others since he was a kind and caring leader of the villages and the guardians of his home. Shaltier was taken to the garden to be healed and saved while speaking to Diablo about his life and his goals for the future of Eden. All of the words he spoke to her amazed Shaltier as Diablo explained that he wished to become a great leader that was firm but kind and gentle to his followers and the villages that were under his protection. Shaltier was amazed since her former master didn't give care for her and the others who served under him, but now that he was dead, Shaltier was free to go wherever she pleased. After fully recovering from her injuries, she spoke to Diablo and asked him to make a blood contract. I, Shaltier Bloodfallen, now swear and pledge my loyalty to Diablo with my strength, body, and power. You may use me, however you see fit, my master, but know that I wish to stay by your side forever and serve you with my entire being. You saved me when I was in that hellhole of a kingdom, but you are the one who saved me and welcomed me into your home. I have nothing to offer you except my body, so please accept this contract so that I may serve you. Now and forevermore. Shaltier said as Diablo looked at the contract before asking her. Are you sure this is what you want, Shaltier? I do. The two were silent until Diablo smiled at her and nodded in reply. Very well. Welcome to the Garden of Eden, Shaltier Bloodfallen. I look forward to having you by my side. The day that Shaltier Bloodfallen found happiness and the man she wanted to marry. Her one and only master. Then flashback. Unfortunately, her flashback was once again interrupted again by Brain slashing at the vampire bride in front of Shaltier. Ah. The bride screams in pain as Brain looks at his opponent, only to blink in shock as the slash wound immediately heals and the monster jumps back to her master. Brain rested his katana on his shoulder. A vampire, huh? Great. This will be fun. Very fun. But you're all by yourself, sir, Shaltier said, pulling off a puppy dog look. If I were you, I would call the rest of your friends. Then you might have a chance. Brain smiled as he replied to her. He lowers his sword and grasps it with both hands. My name is Brain Ungloss. A moment of silence envelops the atmosphere. And you are? Oh. So that's what we're doing. Shaltier exclaims, realizing what's going on. How utterly adorable. Brain growls as Shaltier bends in a curtsy. My name is Shaltier Bloodphone. I hope you will entertain me well before you perish. She thinks she is unbeatable. Typical monster. Brain sheaths his sword and pulls himself back as he holds the tight. But she won't be faster than my god flash strike. And she can't get past my field. Now. A red circle appears under Brain's feet and expands, surrounding him. Shaltier looks down at the ring in slight shock before returning to Brain. I take it you've finished with your preparations. The two stared at each other briefly, and the answer was clear. Alright. Then let the massacre begin. Shaltier begins her tread towards Brain without worry, contrasting with Brain's more severe expression. As if. An image of Gazif pops into Brain's head. I developed the god flash and field so I could beat you. And if I combine the two of them, I will. Blade technique. Shaltier steps foot in the field. Whistling wind. Brain's arm blurs as he slashes at Shaltier's head. But nothing happened, only silence as Shaltier stopped the blade with her fingernail. Brain gasped in horror as he backed away from the monster before him. How? There's no way you could have blocked that. Shaltier smiled at his fear and replied. It was too weak and slow for me that all I had to do was lift a finger. I think you now just realized how futile this is. I may be a beautiful little monster, but I'm also cold, cruel, and ruthless. She jumped back as she spoke to him again. If you have another attack, you should try it now. Brain gasped and took a fighting stance, making Shaltier frown as she noticed Brain's body trembling in fear. What's the matter? Was that little barrier and slash all the martial arts, you know? The Brain looks at her, surprised. Martial arts? Is that what you think I was doing? Brain looks at the ground momentarily before letting out a battle cry and leaps upwards with his katana held high. However, his attacks are all deflected by Shaltier's fingers. Shaltier yawned, already bored by Brain's useless attempts at harming her as she kept deflecting them until Brain stopped, which made her look at Brain before asking him. What's wrong? Are you tired already? Shaltier asks a painting of Brain. I thought you'd have more stamina than this. Huh? What are you talking about? How strange. I thought you used martial arts to increase your strength and speed. Brain stepped back as Shaltier continued speaking to him. But I don't notice any difference and you're just as weak as you were before we started. Shaltier then smiled wickedly at him as she continued to speak to him. If you want to make a good first impression, you, sir, will have to work a lot harder than that. A moment of silence passes before Brain breaks down and cries, making Shaltier sigh as she figures out the man is done. There is still hope for you. The fact that you know martial arts means that you might be of little use to my beloved master, so be grateful you have some worth in your pathetic self. Shaltier said with a bit of pity in her tone. I am such an idiot. Brain mutters between sobs. He then screams his lungs out and starts running away. Shaltier looked at him with a smile before calling out to him. Oh my. Are we playing a game of tag now? You like to fool around, don't you? Shaltier's smile grows more prominent. Well, too bad. The blood pool was deactivated, releasing all the blood it had compiled above Shaltier. Her body absorbed all of the blood as a purple aura enveloped her. I've wasted enough time with you as it is. The remaining mercenaries put together a last line of defense, all disturbed by the sounds of Shaltier cackling. Commander. One of the mercenaries asks their leader. The leader then signaled them to prepare as they pointed their crossbows at the entrance. They instead see a whimpering Brain running towards them. It's Brain. But their relief was short-lived as Brain ignored them and entered another room. The hell? That's strange. The commander commented before a high screeched laughter filled the air. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.